Hi, good morning, everybody. This is Keith Howard from the band Undercover. And I thought I would go ahead and do this week's Spotlight band member. This week we're going to spotlight our keyboard player and saxophone player, Steve. Steve is an anomaly. Let me tell you how I met Steve, first of all. So I put this band together little over, I guess, put it together a couple years ago. At that time, I had a different saxophone player, a gentleman that I play at church with, Dave, who I will spotlight here in the future. Some of the original members and what their roles were. We've come a little bit over the last year and a half as far as trying to settle in what makes the most sense, and turns out Steve has a little bit more ability to hear than Dave did, and so he's picking up all the detail, the minutia in our songs. So I started looking for a keyboard and saxophone player when we realized that Dave wasn't hearing what we were hoping he would hear. And plus, he had said right away, he said, I can play some basic chords and stuff on the keys, but I'm not like a keyboard player. And I was like, oh, see, that's what I need. We're all playing those chords, so I need a keyboard player to play keyboard parts. So we knew right away that we weren't going to have what we needed in that spot. So I went to this page called bandmix.com, and what it lets you do is it lets you create a profile, and you tell them a little bit about you. Well, I'm a vocalist who's a bass player, the world's okayest bass player, that is. Nothing too special there. But I'm trying to get a band together, and these are the parts I need to fill. And I thought I was going to be getting two people. It's not common to find a person who's able to fill both of those shoes. I'm thinking I could be way off. Maybe those people are a dime a dozen. I just didn't find all of them. But I found a gentleman who said he could do that. He responded to me, and we got to chatting a little bit. Well, what are you trying to do? And I said, well, I'm trying to put a classic rock band together, and we've got everybody else, but I need we need these two spots filled. And I said, and I noticed that you can do both. And he said, I can. Tell me about what kind of songs. Well, again, classic rock, 80s, 90s, lots of synthesizer music back then, and so anyway, he says, all right, I'm not sure I'm the guy for this job. However, I think I have the perfect guy for what you're looking for, and I'm gonna send him your way. So one of us reached out to the other. I can't remember if he gave me Steve's information or vice versa. We hadn't gone out on our first gig yet. Our first gig was a year ago this past February. So this was probably in December or January of last year. December 2 years ago or January of last year. And I told Steve, I said, well, I got an idea. Do you think, because he was curious, he had lots of questions too. He told me he was a jazz musician, and I thought, I don't know anything about jazz, but I know it ain't what we're doing. And but he said, but I'm really curious. I've always been curious about these cover bands. And I said, that's us. That's what we're doing. We're covering songs that everybody's heard. And I said, we're playing in February on this date in Swansea at the Swansea Improvement Center. and would love to have you there. Would love to meet you and talk to you a little bit about what your thoughts are after the show. And so he showed up. I mean, like, he was there. He walked up to me at the end of the first set when we took our first break. Here's this tall, skinny guy looking down at me, and I was like, for some reason, I just knew that was Steve. I mean, I knew it wasn't anybody that I had invited, and the place was full of people that I knew, but he wasn't one, and I knew that I was looking for him. And I said, "Are you Steve?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "Oh my gosh, thanks for coming." And I said, "What do you think?" And he said, "Well, I can tell you more about it later. It's loud, but I do like the music, and with my interaction with you and seeing you with the rest of the band, I'm very encouraged by that dynamic. You seem to care about your band members, and which I thought was a very interesting observation. Later, I would come to find that not all bands are created equal in the inner workings and the interaction between the members and the leadership, and usually there's egos that create animosities or aggression toward each other. And I'm so new to this, I don't know that from Adam. That's just not how I treat people in life. Why would I treat them like that in a band? So yeah, I'm different. I'm way different. So he kind of liked that. And so he stayed for, I think, the whole night. And then we spoke again. And I said, well, I think I'm settling on Dave for right now. But I'll let you know if that changes. Dave worked real hard, and he was going to be getting some new hearing aids. And we were very encouraged by that, and really were hoping that he could hear. It's not Dave's fault that he couldn't hear. It's just it's got to be horrible. So after a few months of trying, there were just so many things we couldn't do, so many sounds we couldn't provide, and so many songs we couldn't sing, that I had to have that conversation. And Dave was like, he had heard about Steve and what Steve's qualifications were, and how Steve was able to do all those keyboard parts and play the sax. And he said, hey, I would understand completely. I mean, I want you to do what's best for this band. And because that's Dave, and he's a great guy. And so I put that off for another 3 months, and I said, Dave, we were hoping that those new hearing aids were going to work, and I don't know what to tell you. Do you think you can do something to be able to hear that? And he was like, I think we're at where we're at. And I thought, and I said, we're going to have to go this other route. So that was a long way of explaining where we found Steve, how we found Steve, how we had started with somebody else, and it didn't work out the way we were hoping. Now, Dave is there as our backup sax guy. And then Olivia, my daughter, she picks up the keyboard. And so if Steve's not there, and we've had 2 outings without him recently, and it went fine because Dave knows those songs, and Olivia is a good keyboardist as well. So anyway, we've got a plan A and a plan B. Steve's our plan A, and Steve is so meticulous. It's funny. The guys refer to me as the leader of the band because I'm the guy that put it together, but I'm probably the least qualified guy to be running a band because I never grew up in a band. I never grew up anywhere around, music and training of music and that many of these guys have. We'll talk about Chop next week. He's been at this for decades. even Greg, who sings, he's been playing the drums like he's self-taught, but he's been playing drums for years, decades. I'm the new guy on the block. I just taught myself how to play bass about maybe 5 years ago, 4 years for sure, and taught myself a lot of really bad habits on how I'm playing. And I mean, I don't know notes hardly beyond the end of the neck of the bass guitar. You'll see guys playing, really close to the body of the. I don't know what the bass parts are called. I'm an idiot. I just play. I just play what I know, and I try to play what you hear on the radio, but I don't have all the inside, the details. But anyway, I don't have that. But Steve does, and he hears everything. Steve didn't grow up listening to many of these songs. Steve grew up listening to maybe light rock, where I was listening to the Keishi and those songs. I wasn't listening to grunge came out well after I was an adult. I wasn't a hard like I don't know what was out back then that I would consider like super hard rock. I was more of a like REO Speedwagon, the early stuff, not the High Fidelity when they really started getting all those soft rock ballads, Foreigner, Styx. That was mine. So I'm kind of somewhere in the middle, where Steve is much more on the softer side. Even the ABBA and some of those that you might hear in the dentist office waiting in the waiting room. And so he just didn't know many of the songs that I had proposed for our set list. So he had a lot of learning to do. But in listening to each and every song, he was hearing things that I had heard for years, and much of it had taken for granted. A lot of it assumed we weren't even ever going to be able to do because of the complexity. Like I said, we were struggling because Dave wasn't able to do much of that, and I had sort of given up on the detail stuff. I was hoping that we could get some keyboard stuff going, but oh my gosh, Steve was bringing in and does bring in some things that I'm just blown away with. You'll hear some stuff that maybe you'll pick it up, maybe you won't. Like I said, you take it for granted. It's part of the song that we're so used to. He's got an amazing keyboard, and he will find that sound or something very similar to it. He's not happy if it's not perfect, but he will agree to do it if it's the only thing we can do. So yeah, he is so smart about what he knows and how to play and how to get the sound and all that. I tell him, I said, listen, when you and I talk, I'm like the student and you are the professor. You're the one who should be instructing here, and I'm the one who is ignorant about everything, and still learning all the time. And he kind of cracked up, but I call him the professor all the time. He is one of the nicest guys. This is a theme, and I said that you'll probably be hearing that every time that I talk about one of our band members. I've told people for a long time now, because they've met our band. You guys are meeting our band during breaks and at gigs and afterwards, and have got to know us a little bit that way. And many of you have come to me and have said, you got a nice bunch of guys here. This is a great group of guys. And I said, bingo. That was my number one goal was to find great guys that would, no matter what, would treat each other well, that would treat each other with respect and dignity and not belittle and berate each other, but to be gracious and kind, because that's how I want to be treated. I don't want them to treat me like a piece of dirt, and so I'm not going to treat them that way. And I mean, that's right out of the Bible. I do to them the way you want them to do to you, and so I'm working very hard at making sure that when I find somebody, that I find somebody who, first of all, is a great human being. So Steve is definitely in that category, and then on top of that, with his knowledge and abilities, and he makes our flyers. He calls me frequently, texts me frequently. I got ideas about this song. I mean, he is all over it. He's not making up for lost time, but his attention to detail is impeccable. It really is. He and I have had, early on, we had a couple of differences of the way that we did things. Like I said, he came from a background of music and had developed some very thick skin over those years of instructors and people around him, I guess, in the band, calling him out and saying, you're screwing this up, or you got to fix that. And for me, when I learned how to play my instrument, I came into a church group where people all around me were excellent at their instrument. They understood how to read music, and I didn't have a great grasp of my instrument. I couldn't read a lick of music unless there was a little letter above a word in the sheet music. That's called a lead sheet. And if I could see an A there, and I'm reading the words, and I see that pretty soon here he's about to say that word, and above it's the letter A, I'm going to hit that A right then. That's how I learned how to play in church. And so it took me a little longer than the average person, and so I needed a little bit of gentle, handle with care here, and but Steve, that's not how Steve learned, and so I had the real thin skin, and he had the real thick skin. So he would call people out early on, like we're just practicing the song for the first time, and then he's got all these things that we did wrong that he wants to talk about, and I had to kind of call him aside, and I said, because I'm assuming maybe it's not just me, maybe others feel like, look, if you're going to call me out, now I'm really nervous around the rest of the band, and I'm probably going to make 10 more mistakes just because I'm nervous. And so I said, Steve, here's the way. I know you're coming into practices late here because of the change after Dave. And I said, here's the way I've kind of started doing this. And forgive me if that's not what you're used to, but I think it's the better way. And I said, here's what I do. We'll play through a song with the track, right what you would hear off the radio. We'll listen to it. We'll play with it. We may play one more time with that. Then we'll try to play the song once without that additional help. So we may play 3 or 4 times and then talk a little bit about it and then be like, all right, let's shelve that for right now. We'll come back to that next week or maybe later today. I didn't want it to ever get to that point where people are like, okay, so-and-so keeps doing that. They keep screwing up. I felt like, I think they already know they're screwing up. So I'm not going to point that out yet. So early in the process. So I had to tell him, I just want them to sort this out. Give them another week at home to sort this out. And then let's hear them next week. If they're still making that mistake, all right, let's gently play the track again and say, does everybody hear this part? Do you hear that person making the same mistake? And he was like, okay, all right, I can do that. He was so gracious about I can change. He's even said, whatever you want me to do that makes it better, I'll do it. And so, as far as I'm concerned, Steve is one of the best. One of the best of us in the fact that he has so much to offer, so much to give, does it with respect, does it with enthusiasm, does it with amazing attention to detail, and will give as much or as little as you ask of him without any anger, bitterness, or anything other than contentment. He's fine. He's happy with what he has and will do what you ask him to do. He's so good back there. The saxophone, we haven't talked about the saxophone. He doesn't have any music back there. No notes on a piece of paper that say, here's like how many beats you count before you come in, and then how many beats you play, and then how many beats that you're not playing until you play again. Dave had all that. Steve doesn't have any of that. Steve does all of it from his memory of what he heard on the track. He's just doing what he hears. I don't function that way to that degree. If I hear it, I'm going to write some of that down, most of that, if not every bit of it. And so you'll see I've got an iPad that I work off of. I got to have my notes there. He's got sheet music too, but it's not the same thing. It's not. It's just not. And so sometimes you'll hear him do a little bit different than before. It's just whatever mood he's in. If he wants to add a little extra something on the end of it, he'll do it. The professor. I think that's a pretty good way of naming him. He's that guy. He's the guy that you want. He's the guy that all of us need if we want to go to the next level. And everybody in the band feels like now we can get to the next level because of him. And Steve, you do have another band or two that you tinker with, and I'm just so grateful that you did decide to come and join our band. And for what you bring to this band, I sure hope you're getting back everything that you're giving. It's an equal, reciprocal relationship, that you're enjoying your participation in this band as much as we enjoy having you, because you are amazing. You have taken us into a different direction, a direction that my mind was envisioning, but not seeing the possibilities there. But you proved my mind wrong, and for that I thank you. Thank you for being a part of us. Thank you for choosing our band, and can't wait to see where this band goes in the next couple of years, because you've only been with us for a little over a year, really. And it's absolutely amazing to think that in that short amount of time we've changed so much, and we've replaced two people, and for your part of that, it wasn't as though Dave was bad in any way, because he wasn't. He just wasn't as good and didn't have as many tools. I mean, you have so many more tools than any of us. We're doing everything we can just to keep up, and I appreciate you challenging us in that way, because I've never seen anything like you. And thank you for being kind enough to sort of see things the way I see them, and to treat people the way I would like to be treated and the way I would want to treat you. And just thank you for everything. Appreciate you, Steve. I always look back and I know that when you're there, we're in good shape. Steve also does background vocals, and he sings a song from The Doors, Riders on the Storm. Pretty good voice. And Steve's got this this little thing that he sings through that makes him sound like he's more than one person sometimes, and just tricks up his sleeve, that kind of thing. That's next level. That's like the professionals do. All right, you guys take care. That's our spotlight on Steve. Get to know Steve a little bit. Stop by there and say hi to him. He's something. Take care. God bless.